President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday this week commissioned a 5,000 barrel per day Walter Smith modular refinery in Imo State, saying the advent of such refineries in the country would help in making more available petroleum products as well as eliminate importation. The president also took part in a groundbreaking ceremony for Phase 2 of the project, which is geared towards expanding the capacity of the refinery to 50,000 barrels per day. Coming on a day that members of the House of Representatives yet again spent a huge chunk of its plenary deliberating on the petroleum industry bill. The picture many industry watchers are painting is mainly that a lot of motion without much movement. Our next guest, having been involved at the very highest level of engagement with government on oil and gas industry labor matters, will be looking at just how much Nigeria has suffered as a result of not being able to push this potential legislation across the line, while also failing to exert the same influence which made her a regional power broker not so long ago. Joining us now is Peter Esele, former president of PENGASSAN and two-time president of the Trade Union Congress. Good morning, Mr. Esele. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So many things to discuss. I think I'll start with the PIB and the fact that it's been 20 years in the making and we're still not at the finish line, whereas screaming headlines all over the world are heralding the end of the oil age in the next 30 years. How and why have we dropped the ball so badly?
Well, one of the major reasons behind why we've dropped the ball is politics. Politics. And we've had various parties in power. They really didn't have what I would call a policy to address those challenges. I'll take you back. It actually started from OGIC, Oil and Gas Implementation Committee, and then which later metamorphosed to Petroleum Industry Bill. And what you have now is Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. So when you talked about the fact that it's all been motion and no movement, you can even see it in the various names that have been given to the bill. But again, I'm optimistic that this next 3 years is possible that we may cross it this time around.
All right. Peter, you wrote a couple of articles recently over the weekend, and you wrote one particularly, about options, or I think it was an interview granted to you about options remaining now for Labour as regards the increase in petrol price. Peter, you've had this dance over and over again. What is really happening? At some point, we talked about the fact of this full deregulation. Now we are hearing there's something sort of a deregulation and all of that. What is really wrong as regards pricing?
I think this Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, the way it's worded, and if it's passed, the regulation will be a fait accompli. Why am I using the word that it will be a fait accompli? It will be law. And what that would do is that the bill, or when it becomes a law, will help us maximize the benefit of oil and gas. Then you are going to have DPRO. DPRO will disappear. Of course, DPRO, PPRA will also now be merged into another company. The NNPC becomes Nigerian Petroleum Company. And over a period of time, you are going to have the NNPC now going to the stock market. And then you're going to have the NNPC will have to sell shares. Similar thing that you have going on with Aramco. So for me, when the NNPC goes public, between 10 to 40% will be divested by the government within the next 5 to 10 years, once it becomes law. And one of the beauty of that is that you are going to have the regulation coming on its own. Then it's not left for government to decide how to manage and make life easier for the people. Now you are talking about the regulation, the pricing system. You can't buy, even the marketers at the moment, you buy dollar. When you want to buy crude, it's sold in dollar. And you buy in dollar and you have to sell in naira. So if your currency, which is the naira at the moment, in January was 303, and now it's about 387 at NYFX, and then in the black market is about 480. So depending upon where the marketers resource is for us. And if whatever happens is that it's going to sell after converting from dollar to naira, you are not going to buy at the same price. So that is the fundamental challenges. That's why I said the options before the labor movement in the interview that you just quoted, and I said it's limited. But my attention on labor at the moment is that my guys should just focus on how do we mitigate whatever effect this will have on workers and Nigerians generally?
Well, according to the director of the DPR, Mr. Awalu, the Walter Smith refinery is unlike any other. What makes it so different? And still on refineries, we had the meeting with the South-South leaders, well, finally, and the presidential delegation. You know, they're conducting a nationwide outreach in the aftermath of the NSAS protests. And the South-South leaders are demanding the immediate privatization of the nation's refineries. What are your thoughts?
I don't think the union are even against it. As president of PENGASSAN, I signed off on privatization of the refineries. We said use the NLNG model. But politics, for whatever reason, we don't know why they've not done it. So even at the moment, is the refineries working? The refineries right now, they are not working. So if you want to privatize on 4159. I don't think the unions are against it. The unions are not against it at all. And then when you talk about modular refineries that are coming in, hopefully in the next 2-3 years, importation of petroleum products will be a thing of the past. I'm very confident of that. Hopefully 2021, Dangote's refinery will come on board. And then you also have BOA. BOA is also setting up to build about 200,000 barrels of refinery. Now you have 50,000 modular refinery that is also being planned. So I think we are getting there gradually, and in another 1 or 2 years, nobody's going to talk about importing petroleum products.
But before all of this, the Minister of State for Petroleum, Timothy Silva, said on national TV that there's no big deal about sourcing products from Niger Republic. And if you read, I think it was The Economist or other international journals, did write an extensive report about how foreign companies are coming to set up strategic refineries in Niger so that they can bring products in. And you wonder, why have we not been able to do this for our economy also? Why have we not been able to get even as much modular refineries as possible to be able to cushion the effect? Why do we have to look to Niger now? Because before Dangote and BOA comes on stream, that is going to be done by the French guys, we will still have to buy, probably from Niger.
Now, I think I listened to the minister's interview. I think one of the challenge of a lot of people in power is the ability to communicate and communicate effectively. I think his use of the word that we should be proud, I think that is what actually angered a lot of Nigerians. But what I'm saying here is, buy from Niger, I will ask a question. Will it be better if we buy from Europe or we buy from Niger? You know, there is I think buying from the neighbors will be better for us. But at the end of the day, I know where your worries are, is why don't we have this in country? But then it's better late than never. Hopefully, Dangote capacity will take care of everybody. Even if everybody comes to start setting up refineries, at the end of the day, once Dangote refineries come up, those companies who are setting up refineries next door would go bankrupt, because we are not going to buy from them, because it's also going to, Dangote refinery will help us to save a lot of forex. So that's why I am very optimistic that next year is going to be a pivotal year in the industry.
Your optimism is contagious, I have to say, because you keep expressing it. I wanted to take you back to that meeting with the South-South leaders and their demand that all subsidiaries of NNPC should move their headquarters to the South-South region. What are your thoughts?
Well, that is politics. And if you look at the stakeholders who went there, they are politicians, and that is what politicians do to come to the front line, make a lot of comments and tell you, but you cannot tell a company where they would put their headquarters. ExxonMobil had it in Washington. And one of the reasons why you always have headquarters in the capital is for ease of doing business, ease of reaching out to government, and also to carry out a lot of lobbies and also save you costs. So you're able to lobby government, you're able to have presentation in the National Assembly, for example. If they insist on moving these headquarters to the South-South region, I think what we should be interested in the South-South, I happen to be from that region, is that region who are in these companies. I think that should be primarily for our focus, in the sense that if you have educated people who are are knowledgeable, there are so many South, and then they are not employed. I think that is the area where we should focus on, to say, okay, fine, this is the quota that we think that should get. And for me, if you ask me, I think that is how you go.
Right.
Come and set up.
Right. I think we're having some little
will not grow.
Challenges with your network,
Focus
Peter.
Should be the number of people from South who are unemployed.
All right. So, Peter, if you can hear me, I think we're having some challenges with your network. But if you can hear me real quickly, I'd like to know your take on this. If you, okay, so I'd like to know your take on this. You talked about Labour. Labour claims that they were talking to the federal government. Don't forget that they were supposed to go on strike at a point, but they sought the way of negotiation with the federal government. That they were talking to the federal government. They had negotiations going on, and that was why we had a reversal in electricity tariff and the likes and things like that for a bit. And then Labour feels that the federal government crept up on them and all of a sudden increased fuel price when they said, oh, the negotiation was going on. And Peter, it's so easy. That's why I say you've been part of this song and dance. We keep talking and saying, oh, the palliative to cushion the effects. But we know how the song and dance went a couple of years ago, maybe when we had the subsidy protest. The song and dance went this way. Subsidy reinvestment scheme, we're going to buy buses, we're going to reduce this, we're going to reduce that, but we're going to do turnaround maintenance on the refinery, but nothing happens. The song and dance too happened when Labour was negotiating with the federal government. Part of the song and dance was even the Minister of Minister of State for Petroleum Resources came out to say, oh, we're going to bring in CNG auto gas. You know, it's going to cost half of the price of petrol. We're going to fix CNG running engines in your cars for free and all of that. And we don't hear anything about it. It's all gone in thin air. The trust is the problem. So when you tell me that narrative, I look at you with a second eye, critically, and said, really? Is that it?
What I'm going to tell you is that what you are trying to do, or what you are saying, is that you are invariably making the Labour leaders a government on its own. Don't forget, these people you are talking about are your elected officers. You elected, the party in power right now is APC, is not NLC or TUC. So these are your elected officers. The people to champion better life for Nigerians are supposed to be members of the National Assembly, governors, and presidents. What the Labour leaders are doing is that they are also contributing their quota by holding them to be accountable. Labour leaders are a pressure group. We must be able to define that. Labour leaders are a pressure group. Government, from the National Assembly to the president and to the government, are responsible for making life easier for Nigerians. The Labour leaders will apply the necessary pressure that they can apply under the law. So it is not left for government to listen. And the other aspect of it is that Nigerians, not just Labour leaders alone or Labour movement, civil society, everybody should step up and hold those who are in authority, those who are paid to lead the people, those who are paid to speak for the people, to stand up. You just don't elect people, and then at the end of the day, you are paying them millions of salary, free housing, free healthcare. And they are making, and you are saying it is the NLC president or TUC president that should speak for you. Rufai, you and I know this, that parliament is there to speak for the people. So if life is becoming difficult for the people, it's the responsibility of the parliament. Labour can carry gun to the head of the government. So Labour cannot be subversive, but Labour can apply pressure within the law.
So what can the government do? What would you like to see them do in terms of social investment programs to cushion the effects of the increase of fuel prices, which a lot of Nigerians find completely unacceptable? We're groaning under the weight of a recession now.
Now, with recession, one of the easiest things you do that I've learned that can get you out of a recession is that government spend. And then you make things easier for the people. And one of the low-hanging fruit that I would say is that you have tax cuts. Now, that will benefit everybody because it's expected that every one of us, we are expected to pay tax. So if everybody is paying tax, you go ahead and give tax cuts. That is immediate, so that you're able to free up funds for people to spend. And then also, companies also need to get tax cuts, because that, for me, is the low-hanging fruit that you do immediately. But all we hear from government is that they don't have money. Government needs to find the money and spend their way out of this recession. If people don't have money to spend, we are going to remain here. And now, okay, if you look at it, the last quarter we're talking about, we have a contraction of about 3.2. The earlier quarter, where we had a contraction of about 6.3. So what you have is that the earlier quarter, this quarter that have just been released by National Bureau of Statistics, is better than the previous one. So hopefully we get out of recession, maybe in Q1 2021 or Q2 2022. But the only way we can get out of recession is spend, and also free up funds for the workers, cut taxes.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Esele. Thank you for joining us this morning.